Welcome back to the STLK in the UTA Cougars podcast. We're back. It's been 2 weeks since we were together on this. I know you did this with Conjo last week. I'm really excited to be here. I hope you're excited to have me back.
It's great to be back. BYU keeps winning, at least on the basketball court.
Yeah. A few transfers
to talk about. Yeah, a couple football things.
Should we talk about it? This isn't breaking news, I don't think. It's Gary Bohannon. I believe on a few Cougar boards, it was released that he's transferring. 6'3", 225 quarterback, backed up at University of Southern Florida last year. His senior year of high school, Steve, is what I want to talk about, because I like looking at that stuff.
In Arkansas. It was about an hour and a half outside of Memphis.
It was in 2017, so it's been a while. 2,600 passing yards, 34 touchdowns, 1,200 rushing yards, 17 rushing touchdowns. Goes to Baylor in 2021. This is where it gets interesting. Led them to a 12-2 season.
Big 12 champs.
What was it?
Beat Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl that year by a decent margin, by a couple scores. Yeah, they were a great team.
I did not know that.
Baylor was a great team that year.
Okay, so he led that team. And then he just didn't play this last year.
Transfers to USF. He played his first year. BYU played against USF. I believe it was at Max Tui. They got a pick six of the first play of the season or something for BYU. Ended up playing. That was, I guess, 2021. No, 2022. This past season, though, he didn't see the field at USF.
Just a second.
And now he's in the transfer portal. Yeah, potentially coming to Provo.
A lot of rumors are saying that he's about to commit. So that's exciting. I'm not sure if he's the answer at quarterback. I'm not sure if he knows if he's the answer at quarterback. But it's a start. It
feels similar to the way we felt last offseason with Keaton Slovis. Yeah. Gary Bohannon was a big recruit. He's got a big arm. He's an athlete. Maybe that's a little bit different from Keaton, right? Keaton was a pocket passer, whereas Gary Bohannon really is a true dual threat quarterback.
Almost a more strong runner than passer.
Yeah, probably so.
His career.
But Gary Bohannon at Baylor had an excellent season. Yeah. He wasn't going to be the starter going into 2022. Transfers to USF and just never pans out. And so similar story with Keaton Slovis, right? He goes to USC, breaks a bunch of freshman quarterback records at USC. Jackson Dart comes in from Corner Canyon High School, and he decides to transfer to Pitt and just never got it going at Pitt. And then obviously comes this year at BYU and lost his starting spot. And so it'll be interesting to see if BYU ends up with him, if he is their guy, or if they continue to look in the portal for another quarterback.
It does make me nervous, and I said this last year with Keaton, and again, I think Keaton off the field really fit in with BYU, but there's a reason it's a fifth-year guy transferring. Like, the school they were at did not want them. That's why they're in the portal. It does make me nervous for BYU to commit back-to-back years to a player like that.
And I just don't know what the fan appetite is. As a BYU football fan, like, do we just want to continue getting guys for one season? Or would we rather have guys coming in from the high school ranks or even from the JUCO ranks and giving us a couple years of eligibility to really develop under Aaron Roderick and the BYU offense? I don't know, especially after the Keaton Slovis experiment just didn't work out. Do we want another guy who, like you said, fifth-year transfer, he's had two schools that really didn't want him as the starter. Yeah. He comes here again. Like I said, I do think the one big difference is he is dual threat, and Aaron Roderick has been a great offensive coordinator when he had dual threat guys like Jaron Hall and Zach Wilson. And so, I guess we'll see. I would be surprised if that's BYU's like North Star. We got to get Gary Bohannon and we're done.
That. He was a 4-star. That's why I talk about high school. It's like the potential's there. Like that, maybe that's what they're looking at if this is their guy. Again, I don't think it is. But like in the past, he was looked at as the guy wherever he went. So that's why I'm like, hopefully they don't look at him like that. I had a point I was going to make. But either way, again, a fifth year. I was going to say, is Bryson Barnes, has he committed anywhere?
Bryson Barnes is still in the portal.
Kinda.
You think he's a dark horse?
He might be. I haven't heard anything. And that sounded cryptic when I said it might be. But again, there's a reason he hasn't committed somewhere. And he's, I believe, top 10 right now in ESPN's uncommitted quarterbacks.
I mean, he's a solid player as well. I don't see him as like a North Star type.
Is he better than Retzlaff?
At this point, yes.
Yeah.
I think Retzlaff's ceiling is higher.
Yeah.
And what I would worry about with Bryson Barnes, obviously a really big body. He's a gamer, the type of guy you'd want on your team. But seeing what Aaron Roderick was not able to do with Keaton Slovis with a pocket passer, and Bryson Barnes can run the ball, but he's not a dual threat quarterback by any means. And I think A-Rod really needs that.
Danny Solly, am I saying that right? Saley, 3-star defensive lineman. Just barely, I want to say 4 hours ago.
This morning.
Decommits from Texas Tech and commits to BYU. That's a big get.
He's a guy. He's a big body, NFL type body. He was formerly committed to Oklahoma, and then he was committed to Texas Tech. Eventually flips to BYU. He had 13 overall offers. He had offers to Miami and NC State, a bunch of
Oklahoma,
Power Five teams. Yes, he could have been in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
he's got an 88 rating overall, and so a really big get. I think BYU's solid at the D end. We have Isaiah Banya coming back as well as Tyler Batty, two guys that probably will get a look from the NFL. But we really need to improve in the interior, and I think Danny could be a big piece of the interior defense.
Did you see the exact tweet that he said? I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, depends on how you want to look at it. He said, "I flipped my commitment to BYU. I was not promised a car, any money, but a chance to grow as a football player and a member of the LDS Church." I respect that.
It's the type of guy. It's the type of guy Kalani wants on his team, right? After the Oklahoma State game, Kalani and Tom Homo even tweeted it saying, "We want guys that want to be at BYU," and it seems like they've got that in Danny.
Throwing out that he got no money. I'm like, man, I hope they pay you a little bit, because I know Texas Tech was going to.
I'm sure he got
BYU's
something.
Pockets are deep.
Maybe he meant additional money than I was going to get anyway. But
okay,
they've got to give him something. So. Everybody gets something nowadays.
I've never met this guy, but I have a feeling he deserves some money wherever he goes. He seems like a pretty important prospect. I hope we pay him. That was interesting that he opted to say that though, which again is just interesting. Ryan Rico. Glares for, I don't know, I want to say the draft, but he's going to the NFL.
I mean, punters and kickers don't often get drafted, but
2 per year. I looked it up.
2 per year?
2 per year punters.
Okay. That's more than I would have guessed, honestly.
Hey, you want to hear the craziest thing ever? Bill Belichick last year took a kicker in the 4th round. Highest a kicker's been taken, I want to say, in 25 years. He has the worst kicking percentage out of all qualified kickers this year.
It's been a tough year for the Patriots.
Let me tell you. Anyway, I say that to say I don't think Rico's getting taken in the first 5 rounds.
He was one of the best punters in the country the last 2 years. We joked early on in the season he was the best player of BYU's football team.
Yep.
I believe he was 3rd in punt average, but then dropped off in net punting because so often he would outkick his own coverage that the guys would get decent returns. And so he's got a powerful leg. There were some inconsistencies there near the end of the season. It seemed like he shanked a couple, but overall, I mean, wish him well. Hope he does okay in the NFL and finds himself a spot.
Yeah, I can see a team taking a chance on him. I mean, he's got the name for it. It's kind of like a weird old English name. I don't know. It fits in the NFL. Let's talk basketball. Are you ready?
Well, yeah, 2 more commits real quick from football. Jack Kelly coming down from Weber State.
That one's big.
You don't get excited about guys coming from Weber State. He's a 4-star DN transfer. I already talked about DNs being solid. 6'3", 235. What really stood out to me, he had 10.5 sacks last year.
It's a lot.
The BYU football team as a whole had 11 sacks last year, one of the worst sack teams in the nation. But that's a guy that can rush the passer. We also got another guy, Luke Tomalatai. He's also a 3-star JUCO guy, comes from Long Beach Community College. He had 8.5 sacks, and he only played 9 games last year, 6'3", 310, an interior guy. So I think BYU is going out and targeting players on the defensive front that can rush the passer. I think it was a glaring hole in the BYU defense this year. We could knock it out after the quarterback.
Are we nervous that we're not getting more Power 5 transfer portal commits? Is that an issue? I've seen it all over Twitter. People are like, oh, well, you can't build a Power 5 team without Power 5 talent. But granted, players come up all the time, make a difference. Are you worried about that at all?
Right now, I'm not. I think we have some solid guys that are coming up from lower ranks. I mean, you look at a guy like Eddie Hecker this last year. He's one of the top intercept getters in the country. He came from Weber State last year. We've had some luck getting these lower level transfers. If anything, these guys can offer depth. Like I said, I think our DNs are already solid. So a guy like Jack Kelly, he plays kind of more like an edge, right? The NFL would probably classify him as an edge.
Yeah.
Kind of an outside linebacker, a D-end. At BYU, he may end up playing outside linebacker just because the linebackers, Ben Bywater still hasn't officially announced what he's doing, but Max Tooley is gone. AJ Vongpachong is also gone. And so we'll see what shakes out there. But I'm not too concerned with it. These seem like guys that BYU should get and is getting. So I think that's great.
Since the release of the net rating in NCAA basketball, in the top 5 on December 15th, the national champion has been in that group. December 15th has come and gone. The top 5 net rating, I'm going to read them off if I can find it. Purdue, Arizona, Brigham Young, Houston, and Baylor. One of those 5 will be a national championship contender this year, if not the champion.
It's pretty wild to step back and think about where BYU basketball is. We sat here just a couple weeks ago and talked about how BYU was picked last in the coaches poll in the Big 12 and thought, that's probably fair. And here we are, we continuously have these top 20 rankings. What did we jump to in the AP?
17
this week.
One jump.
We just went up by one. But the net, we were really high. Ken Palm were really high. And our stats just continue to be wildly impressive. We played Denver last week, who was actually a formidable team. We actually didn't cover against Denver, which was a bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
But then we went out and just blew out. Now I'm blinking.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. You were at the game.
I was at the game.
You were at the game. I can't remember. We did cover, though.
We did cover, and so that was great. Anyway, BYU's a good team. Do I think they're going to be a contender for the national championship? Probably not.
Why not? Every stat is saying it. I mean, sorry to put you on the spot. My homer in me was just offended. Why not? Everything's saying we're going to be.
It just feels a little bit like we haven't had the test that we need yet. Now, I know we've played good teams.
It was Georgia State, by the way, that we beat by 32.
We've played decent teams. San Diego State's a decent team, and Utah's a good team. Then we weren't able to beat them, but I think we're going to learn a lot the first couple Big 12 games when we play these teams that are going to be tournament teams that have the athleticism, have the size on the wing, have the guys that can rebound. And I think I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We often get excited about these preseason rankings or the early season statistics, but the reality is that we have not played a lot of good teams, and so. We'll see come January.
May I offer some pushback?
Please.
Preseason rankings, I also didn't get my hopes up. I'm going on year, I think, 12 of just being disappointed by BYU basketball every year. And this year might be the same, and that's fine. But the difference is this year is that we're actually taking care of business where we need to take care of business. Like you said, we didn't beat Utah. Granted, we were only favored by 2 in that game. Like Las Vegas, the books, they basically said, like, you guys might win, you might not. Like, it's a coin flip, really. Denver was the only other team that we didn't cover the spread against. We're 9-2 against the spread. Every advanced analytic is saying, no, this team's legit. Regardless of who they're playing, they're legit. We saw what happened when the 3-point shots didn't fall. We lost the game by 4 points. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that it's the end of the world if we don't play the way we need to play. We play Bellarmine on this Friday, I believe. We don't play again until 8 days later, home against Wyoming, which again, it's a Mountain West school, I believe, in Wyoming. So I'm not sure how much of a test that is. But like you said, may I read off some games after that I'm excited for?
Let's hear it.
Home against Cincinnati on the 6th of January.
Top 35 KenPom team.
Yep. At Baylor, number 10 in the nation, AP poll right now, the following Tuesday. Then we're at University of Central Florida, not a great team. Then we're home against Iowa State, at Texas Tech, home against Houston, who's one of the only undefeated teams still, and then home against Texas. Like, we're going to find out pretty quick, to your point, if they're legit or not. In that stretch, I think we lose 2, maybe 3 games. Like, this team is so unguardable. Every time I watch it, I'm like, this is the first time in so long that 1, we look good, but 2, it's fun to watch, and 3, how do you guard this team? Everyone can shoot. So that's my pushback. I think we are legit, and I think you're almost like settling yourself a little bit so you don't get disappointed. Steve, it's okay.
I pride myself on trying to be objective, keeping the blue goggles off. I could just see a situation. I have a lot of reason to believe this is a good team as well, and I'll go through some of these, some of the data I have here. But I could see us getting into mid to late January. We've lost a couple Big 12 games. Maybe we even got blown out by a team or two. I think that at Baylor game is going to be tough.
Yep.
It's going to be a rocking house in Waco.
And that's okay.
And they're a top 10 team. And I can see a scenario where we're sitting here in late January and we look at each other and we'd be like, yeah, we kind of got inflated by playing bad teams, right? And so I'm trying to avoid the disappointment that might come there. But look, I'm high on this team as well. Let me talk about a couple reasons why I think this team has not fully even got close to its potential yet. Number one, the last 4 games we played without Foose. He's probably the best player on the roster. He led the team in points and rebounds last year, right? We went to Utah and almost won a game without hitting any threes without our best player. I think that's a huge upside. Dawson Baker played his first game in a BYU uniform this last weekend.
He's a hooper, man.
He's a hooper. He went 3 for 5 overall. He comes in from UC Irvine. He was all-conference player in the Big West. His last game before this last weekend was against Oregon, where he dropped 18 points in an NCAA tournament game. And he seems like a type of player that BYU doesn't really have on the roster right now, in that he can get his own shot, he can create, and he can get to the cup by himself. I think Dallin Hall is a player that oftentimes can get a jab or a crossover and get to the rim, but maybe doesn't have the size that Dawson Baker has. But Dawson Baker is really a shot creator in his own right. You saw there at the top of the key a couple times he had guys on skates. He heard the crowd going oohs and ahs when he had the ball in his hands, and he had a great debut, shooting 60% from the field. So that's a guy I'm excited about. Marcus Adams. We're hearing that he's going to debut this weekend against Bellarmine. This is a guy, a 4-star recruit.
You're getting me excited over here, Steve.
Formerly committed to Kansas. He's a top 50 recruit in the nation in high school. He had a game in high school where he was 11 for 13 from 3. He had 21 rebounds and over 50 points in high school. This is a year ago. In one game. And so this is another guy that comes in, and it's just like, you look at the depth on our team. BYU has 12 players on the roster whose career high is over 20 points. That's a lot of points on the roster.
That doesn't happen in Provo, man.
That's a lot of points on the roster. And so there are reasons to be excited.
Can I go one step further?
Please.
Ali Khalifa. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Ali? I think it's Ali.
Yeah. The Egyptian magician.
You texted me and said he's like I can't remember what you said about Jokic with him. Do you remember what you told me?
I do.
That's okay. He's like Jokic, like the Walmart brand. I wouldn't even say Walmart. Maybe like the Savers. I'm not sure. Maybe Smith's. That might resonate.
He's the generic brand of Jokic.
Yeah, he's the generic brand of Jokic. He leads actually, let me rephrase that. He's one game short of qualifying for this statistic. His assist to turnover ratio right now, do you know what it is?
I believe it's 15-1.
Yeah, 15-1. The number one in the nation with qualified games is 5-1. So unless he just absolutely craps the bed on Friday night, he's going to be leading the nation in assist to turnover ratio. And we play through him a solid amount. Like, but that's something I didn't see coming. And to your point, these transfers that are becoming available, man, like we have a lot of scoring. We have a lot of talent on this team. More than I think, here's my hot take, more talent this year than we've had even since before Jimmer Fredette. I think this team is the best team we've seen in Provo in decades. Is that crazy?
We've had great players on the BYU team. I don't know that we've had the depth we have now.
Yeah.
Just 1 through probably 12, 13. We're playing 11 guys right now.
Yeah.
And that's without Foose, and that's without Marcus Adams, and Dawson Baker just got put in the lineup.
And it's not one of those 11-man lineups where you're like, all right, like Mark, like let's shorten this to 8. It's like, well, how can we find this guy more minutes? Which again, you never see in Provo. But sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
And I think Mark Pope has a good problem this year that he hasn't had in the past, where he's going to have to take minutes from good players. He's going to have to take minutes from players that would start on other rosters. And I mean, a guy like Jackson Robinson, right? He tweaked his ankle this week. We'll see how healthy he is, but he isn't even starting. But did
you see that he's getting first round buzz?
Yes.
That's crazy.
I mean, and he should right now.
Yeah,
the way
I'm not saying crazy like that. He's not good enough. It's just like we have a first round talent on the bench.
And I believe he's top 25 in the nation in 3-point percentage.
Yep, and it makes.
Right. Yep. And so he's shooting at a high clip and he's making a lot of shots. And so it's fun to see. Like I said, I have a bunch of stats. BYU's, excuse me. BYU, let's see. And I think you were going to mention this as well. BYU is the only team in Division I that's top 20 in all 4 of these ChemCom categories. Adjusted offensive efficiency, 16th. Adjusted defensive efficiency, 7th. Effective field goal percentage, 15th on offense and 18th on defense.
What's cool about those, for those who don't know, the adjusted offensive efficiency, it takes out garbage time and blowout time. So if the game isn't within, I want to say 20 points, and within 5 minutes, if it's a blowout, regardless of the score with 5 minutes left, or any possessions with the game separated by more than 20 points, they don't count them.
So you could see some people saying BYU's been blowing out these teams.
Yeah, it doesn't count. Like, of course, our bench warmers are better than theirs.
Right. No. But you're saying this accounts for that in the statistic.
Yes, it takes those out. It says, like, when the game matters, how good are you guys? And it's saying, BYU Cougars, you guys are good. I'm a little worried. This is my pessimistic side of this. The schedule, man. To your point, we've played some easy teams, and I don't care so much that we're playing easy teams. I hate how infrequent we are playing games right now. I texted you. I said, Steve, we're playing less than like NFL teams are right now. Like, it's not like these guys are getting banged up. Like, we play 3 games in a span of 23 days. Like, that's not enough in my opinion.
I do feel like we're going to come into that game January 6th at the Marriott Center against Cincinnati, and it's going to be a while since we've seen the guys play. I do think... I wonder if BYU intentionally did this, saying, all right, let's get healthy going into our first season in the Big 12. But I really hope it doesn't come back to bite us, because I agree. Like, we're not going to be on the floor. We're not going to have game speed the way that we need, especially with some of these guys coming in new, right? Guys have been talking about Dawson Baker. They need real game minutes. Marcus Adams needs game minutes. When Foose gets out of his injury, right, it's going to take him a minute to readjust and get back in the game. And so, yeah, I do wish that we had a little bit more frequent games going into the Big 12. But either way, I think we'll be all right.
From December 16th to January 6th, we play 2 games, which is like on paper, that's not great, especially with the holidays. These players, they're humans. They're going to go home for the holidays. They're going to hang out with their family. We play on the 22nd, and then these guys don't, and they're both at home. And a lot of these guys are from Utah. They're not going to be in the gym as much, probably. Obviously, it's Christmas time. But again, it does make me a little nervous not having at least one real opponent in between the Utah game and the Cincinnati game. I think that's the type of game that you start 25-10 down, then you just have to work your way back the entire time, which I think they're up for it. But it does make me a little bit nervous. Do you have any other stats you want to touch on with basketball?
Yeah, just a couple things about the Big 12. There's 14 teams in the Big 12 right now. Next year we'll move to 16. But BYU in the Big 12 12, first in net average, first in KenPom, first in win percentage, first in points per game, and first in points per game allowed, first in rebounds per game, which we haven't mentioned this pod, still one of the best rebounding teams in the country, second in field goal percentage. And so just a lot of reason to believe that, to your point, BYU can and probably might just compete in the Big 12.
Yeah.
We'll see.
First time in a long time, the net and KenPom rankings are unanimous with the top 5. The order is different. Houston's number 1 in both. Arizona's number 2 in net, 4 in KenPom. BYU's 3 in net, 5 in KenPom. Purdue 4 and 2. UConn 5 and 3. They're a pretty good indicator of who's good in college basketball. The popularity poll, or the AP poll, as some people call it, does not think those are the top 5 teams. But gun to my head, I think most people's head, I think they're taking those as the top 5 teams right now. But again, man, every stat is pointing to this Cougar team being legit, and I cannot wait for the Big 12.
It's going to be fun.
I'm getting excited. Parent Corner. Let's jump into it.
Let's get into it.
Christmas is coming up. I don't think we're going to be recording again until after Christmas.
BYU doesn't have any games to cover.
Well, they have Friday night, right?
Yeah, but just to your point, they don't play a lot of games, so we're not going to have as much content.
Yeah, but what else are we talking about? Let's do this. Let's go over favorite family traditions, if you will. I mean, you got a family of 4. I got a family of 1. I do come from a big family, though, so we do have some fun traditions. You want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Tonight we're going to the giving machines in Salt Lake City. So they're the red vending machines where you can go. We're going to City Creek, and you can buy items for poor families in Africa and other places in the world, I believe.
Tell me how that works.
So it's like you go up to the vending machine, you know, like you push like C2 and it goes,
and it gives you a white monster. Yeah.
And you grab it, right? It's that type of machine, but they have pictures of different items. So you can like buy a goat, for example.
Oh, cool.
Now, there's not an actual goat in the vending machine, but you buy this goat, and the church actually buys a real goat for a family in Africa. A goat's $98, which I think.
I was going to say, what's the going price for a goat? Is it around
I feel like it's a good deal. $98 for a goat.
My family bought 5 goats, so I want to say for $450, but that was like
you got like the bulk discount for buying 5
and that was like mid-recession, so I think the goat market was a little low, but that's a pretty good price. Are you guys going to be buying goats tonight?
$98 is a little. Maybe we'll pool some money.
Yeah,
I don't know how much we spent at the giving machines, but it's all for a good cause. 100% of the money goes to these families. I think the church is doing a great thing.
Is that something the church does? Like that's all the church doing it? It's not the city or the state?
Yeah, it's the church. They send 100% of the money to these families. They actually buy them the real things. You can buy chickens, you can buy goats, you can buy clean water, you can buy experiences, you can buy kits to help people start businesses across the planet.
Wow.
And so
Taylor Swift concerts are there.
I don't think those make the cut. I don't think they'll make the cut. But it's a shout out to my in-laws that we're going with them. But it's a great tradition that we started the last couple of years to just get in the giving spirit, make sure the kids understand what Christmas is all about.
That's awesome. Speaking of Christmas, what it's all about, Santa is a pretty big thing in my family. I come from a family of 18 kids, so we had to have some fun traditions. Actually, there's a handful of us. And one thing we always did growing up was we had Santa come down about 4:30, 5 a.m., so it felt realistic. And I believed it up until I want to say my sophomore year. They did fantastic. Anyway, this is the first year, I guess, that my parents aren't doing it. And they still have kids at home, none of them which believe in Santa, but we're not doing it, Steve. And that's why I asked you your favorite traditions. I heard that from my parents, and I felt like betrayed. I was like, that's kind of like our big thing.
If you're watching this, your children need Santa Claus.
I told her I would volunteer. She said, you don't have the frame for it. And I was like, that's a little insulting. But this has been the STLK and the UTA Cougars podcast. We will be back next week. And that will
my bets.
Go Cougs.